Day 6 of the Diddy trial began like any other. Reporters rushing in, murmurs of what bombshell might drop next. But nothing could have prepared anyone for what happened when Nique, yes, that Nique took the stand. What was once considered a decades-long Hollywood feud suddenly became a federal testimony. And the connections she made between Diddy, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Bishop T.D. Jakes left the courtroom frozen. She didn't just bring words, she brought timelines, receipts, audio, and the kind of truth that made people sit up and listen. For the first time ever, Nique was allowed to say under oath what she's been warning us about for years. And what she said, it changes everything we thought we knew about this trial. The gallery was already packed before the doors even opened on day 6. Journalists lined the hallway, eager for a glimpse of whatever headline might emerge. What they didn't expect was Nique, the Oscar-winning actress, comedian, and outspoken critic of Hollywood, striding in quietly but confidently through the side entrance. Diddy's legal team exchanged glances. Prosecutors shuffled papers with fresh urgency. The air thickened. Nobody had her name on any expected witness list, but the moment she took the stand, the energy in the room changed. Diddy, dressed in a charcoal suit, visibly tensed. He leaned in toward his lawyer, whispering with a hint of confusion. Cameras weren't allowed in the room, but sketch artists captured the moment his trademark stoicism faltered. A slight twitch in his eye, the tightening of his jaw. Nique sat upright, her voice firm from the first word. "I was asked here to speak the truth, and that's what I intend to do." For years, she'd warned the world about what happened behind the velvet curtains of Hollywood. She'd told stories about being blackballed by Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Lee Daniels. People laughed it off, said she was bitter, that she was overreacting. But now, seated under oath in a federal courtroom, those same warnings were being taken very seriously. The judge gave her permission to read from a timeline she had prepared. It chronicled her personal dealings with the individuals now circling this trial like vultures, the exact dates of meetings, phone calls, broken promises, and offers made in back rooms under the guise of opportunity. Prosecutors nodded along, some already referencing notes from Cassie Ventura's earlier testimony. And just like that, the trial wasn't just about Diddy anymore. Nique's second statement wasn't aimed at Diddy directly. It was aimed at Tyler Perry, and it landed like a missile. She described a private phone call with Perry in 2018, during which he admitted that her blackballing from Hollywood had been unjust. "He told me he was wrong," Nique testified. "He said he would apologize publicly. He never did. Instead," she says, "Perry told her that if he publicly apologized, it would blow back on people who weren't ready to be exposed." When asked who he was referring to, Nique looked directly at the jury and said, "Puff, that's who he was worried about. Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever you want to call him." Courtroom observers gasped. Even the prosecution team exchanged looks. This wasn't just drama, it was potential evidence of industry-wide collusion. Nique went further, stating that Perry told her he couldn't risk it because there were too many people tied to too many NDAs. She then presented a written transcript of a recording, a call where Perry told her, "There are things going on that I can't be connected to publicly. We've all seen things at Puff's parties that we're not supposed to talk about." The judge allowed the transcript to be entered into evidence, but barred the audio for now, pending authentication. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just the allegation, it was the chilling realization that multiple Hollywood elites may have known what was happening at Diddy's events and remained silent to protect their own brands. Diddy's defense team immediately objected, claiming Nique's testimony was speculative, but the prosecution argued successfully that it provided necessary context about how silence and reputation management protected Diddy for years and possibly facilitated abuse. Then came the moment that truly turned heads. Nique took a breath, adjusted her microphone, and said the words that would headline news stories by the hour's end. "I've been to one of Diddy's parties, and I left because I saw something I wasn't supposed to." She testified that in 2006 she was invited to a private gathering in Los Angeles. The invitation came via a friend, a fellow actor who told her it was exclusive and networking gold. Nique arrived at a massive estate in the Hollywood Hills. Valets took her phone. She was escorted inside. There were candles, R&B music playing softly, and a rotation of male and female guests ushered into back rooms. I remember a woman in heels and a man in nothing but a bathrobe. I remember one of Diddy's assistants saying, "It's all about experience here. You're safe. If you sign the NDA. That's when I walked out. She didn't sign. She never went back. What followed were whispers. Nique said her phone stopped ringing for major roles. Invitations to film festivals dried up. She heard from a producer that she was being difficult, but she never forgot that night, and she always suspected her exit had made her a liability. The prosecution asked her if she believed this experience was standard practice at Diddy's events. She nodded. "I think it was orchestrated, like a system, and when I refused to play along, I got cut out." Her testimony mirrored what Cassie Ventura and others had described: candlelit rooms, camera setups, experiences involving hired escorts, and luxury hotels disguised as networking havens. But what made Nique's account stand out was her vantage point as a respected actress, not a subordinate. She walked in on her own terms and walked out with her career slowly collapsing behind her. When the prosecution asked Nique whether she believed Tyler Perry had actively protected Diddy's image, she didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, "and I believe it was strategic, coordinated, and part of a larger effort to keep things quiet." She brought up a now-famous moment that many saw on social media: Tyler Perry walking into Bishop T.D. Jakes' megachurch and writing $1 million check right there in front of the entire congregation. "People saw it as a blessing," Nique said. "But I saw a transaction," she continued. "That donation wasn't just charity. It was damage control. That church is a shield, and people like Diddy use it to create alliances that make them look untouchable." Courtroom murmurs started. Even the judge glanced up, watching the jury scribble furiously. Nique testified that around the same time as Perry's church donation, several rumors about Diddy and his parties were quietly disappearing from gossip blogs. "I knew then that people were being paid, influenced, silenced. That $1 million wasn't just for Jakes. It was for peace. It was for silence." The prosecution brought in photos showing that just weeks after that donation, Perry and Diddy appeared together at a BET event, arms around each other, smiles wide, as if the world wasn't circling with accusations. It painted a picture that supported Nique's claim that the entertainment industry didn't just protect Diddy, it elevated him. Then she paused and looked directly at the judge. "You see, I'm not afraid of being blackballed anymore. I've been through it. And let me tell you something. Silence is the most expensive price any of us pay, and we've all paid it." At this point in her testimony, the courtroom grew still. Nique reached into her bag and pulled out a printed transcript. "This is the call," she said. "The one where Tyler Perry admitted he was wrong." Gasps. Whispers. Nique had been saying for years that Tyler Perry privately apologized for the way she was treated after the precious fallout, but now she was saying it under oath, with a transcript to back it up. "I recorded the conversation. He knew. I told him. He said he was fine with it." She handed the papers to the bailiff, who delivered them to the judge. The judge scanned the top lines, then nodded for the prosecution to continue. In the transcript, Perry reportedly says, "I know I messed up. You were never difficult. You just didn't want to work for free. I should have said that publicly." Then he pivots, allegedly telling Nique, "But I can't go public. Puff's name's wrapped up in too much right now." Prosecutors used this moment to explain how Hollywood elites, even those with clean reputations, were afraid of the fallout if Diddy's secrets unraveled. "He told me," Nique added, "that if Puff went down, a lot of people were going with him. People that fund movies, people that sign checks." This part of her testimony validated what former bodyguard Gene Deal and even Christian Keys had hinted at, that Diddy's web wasn't just about personal power. It was institutional. Nique's voice grew more emotional. He had a chance to clear my name. He didn't, because he was protecting something bigger than me, something darker than anyone wants to admit. The judge ruled the transcript admissible, a huge win for the prosecution, and Diddy's attorneys looked visibly shaken. A friendly phone call had just become federal evidence. Then came a name that hadn't been mentioned in this trial so far, but which instantly sent ripples through the room. Oprah Winfrey. Monique didn't bring her up casually. She brought her up with a point. In 2010, I told Oprah something personal, that I'd been abused as a child by my brother. She said she'd never exploit that, but she did. She put my brother on her show, and she did it right after I turned down the Precious press tour. The courtroom didn't know what to do with that. It was emotional, heavy, but Monique wasn't done. She betrayed me, and when I asked why, she said it was business. But I knew the truth. They were trying to shut me up. She then pivoted, connecting Oprah, Perry, and Diddy through their shared use of NDAs, PR crisis teams, and mutual handlers. They all have the same people cleaning up messes, she testified. And I know this because one of those PR reps accidentally forwarded me an email chain, one where my name, Puff's name, and Tyler's name were all in the subject line. It was about how to manage optics. She handed over a redacted version of that email, which the judge took under review. But the message was clear. The power structure wasn't just protecting Diddy, it was coordinated. People signed NDAs. People were paid off. Careers were built or buried, depending on who played along. And Monique, sitting under oath, called it out for exactly what it was: a silence machine built to crush anyone who asked questions. The jury watched as she closed her binder. Her voice never cracked. She wasn't rattled. She didn't need to be. Because for the first time, she wasn't just telling her story, she was testifying. As the court reconvened from a short recess, Monique did something nobody expected. She took a breath and calmly said, "Now, let's talk about the list." The room went silent again. The prosecution leaned in, eager to let her speak. There is a list in Hollywood. It's not written down, but everybody knows it exists. It's the list of people you don't speak against, the untouchables. Puff was on that list. Tyler was on that list. And Oprah? She practically created it. She explained that this list wasn't an actual document, but an invisible boundary. The moment you criticized one of these figures, even if you had proof, you were immediately labeled difficult, crazy, or worse, dangerous to the industry. Monique said she found herself on the other side of that boundary in 2010, and she's been fighting her way back ever since. She mentioned names, not with accusation, but with context. "Don't you think it's strange," she said, "how many people worked with Diddy, Tyler, and Oprah, and then suddenly disappeared?" She cited actors who had one hit show, one award season buzz, and then were gone. Some of them didn't play the game. Some of them said no. And then she lowered her voice and said, "And some of them saw things they were never supposed to see." The court permitted her to read a brief statement from a former actor, redacted for protection, who described a retreat hosted by a powerful male filmmaker, where phones were taken, contracts signed, and strange rituals observed. Monique didn't claim it was Tyler Perry, but she didn't deny the implications either. She let the jury sit with the unease. The judge reminded everyone that these were allegations, but Monique's message was unmistakable. The industry wasn't protecting art, it was protecting secrets. And the cost of telling the truth? They'll take your career, your reputation, your peace, and leave you to explain to the world why your phone never rings again. When asked directly if she believed Diddy played a role in her career being sabotaged, Monique nodded. Yes, not at first, but eventually, yes, and I didn't realize how deep it went until years later. She explained that after the Precious campaign fallout, when the blackballing began, she received a call from a junior executive who had worked at Revolt TV, Diddy's media company. He told me, and I quote, "You rubbed the wrong people. It's not just about Tyler and Oprah. Puff don't like noise either." The court leaned in. Monique testified that the executive hinted Diddy had been approached by Perry's team for future project partnerships. The deal was simple, she said. They wanted access to Puff's platforms, and I was the obstacle. She said that multiple meetings between Perry and Diddy happened behind closed doors, ones she later found out about through mutual contacts. They discussed my name, not as talent, as a problem. Then, the prosecution presented emails between a PR firm hired by both Revolt and Tyler Perry Studios discussing managing narratives around Monique and Cassie Ventura. The first time the court saw a direct digital link between both women's reputations being carefully manipulated in tandem. That moment hit hard. Monique continued, saying she believed her difficult label was passed around intentionally. They used that word like a virus. Infect one casting director with it, it spreads to everyone. Soon, your name comes up in a room, and they already have a reason to say no. It was then that she said something few ever say under oath in Hollywood. I wasn't blackballed. I was whiteballed. By black people. People who looked like me, and people who feared losing their own spot more than they cared about doing right. I didn't want to be here, Monique began, her voice steady but tired. But I needed to be, because what they did to me, what they did to Cassie, what they're doing to young women and men right now, it won't stop, unless someone says it with a mic louder than theirs. She explained how she was contacted by the prosecution 2 months prior and initially said no. I wasn't going to relive it, she said. Wasn't going to expose my family, my trauma, my pain again. But then I saw the Prince recording. I saw Diddy shouting in court. I saw Cassie break down on the stand. That's when she said she broke. Monique described her final decision to testify as a moment of spiritual clarity. I heard my grandmother's voice saying, "Baby, don't let them write your story without you in the room." And I knew I had to come. Her final minutes on the stand were devastating. The prosecution asked, "In your opinion, Ms. Jackson, what was the root cause of this entire system of silence?" Monique answered, "Fear. Everybody in this industry is scared. Scared to lose a job, scared to lose a deal, scared to lose relevance, and scared to tell the truth because people like Puff, like Tyler, and yes, like Oprah, have made it very expensive to do so." She looked toward Diddy and said quietly, "You thought nobody would talk, that you built an empire strong enough to silence everybody, but now you're sitting in silence, and I hope you finally hear us." As she stepped down, court reporters described Diddy as visibly shaken. His hands trembled. His attorney whispered furiously. The gallery erupted, not in noise, but in energy. It was the moment the courtroom felt the tide shift. Monique, blackballed for over a decade, had just become the most powerful voice in the trial. The courtroom had been on edge for days, but no one expected what happened when Monique locked eyes with the defense and whispered the name that hadn't been officially uttered once during the previous 5 days. Tyler Perry. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, like someone finally removing a loaded weapon from a locked drawer. You want to talk about power? You want to talk about silence? Ask Mr. Perry why I was blackballed after refusing to work for free. And then look who stood beside him at every event, the gallery gasped. At first, the courtroom seemed confused. Tyler Perry wasn't on trial. His name wasn't in the indictment. But Monique's implication wasn't about legality. It was about culture, about the system, about who protected who. He never lifted a finger to help me, but he made calls to make sure no one else would either. Ask the producers. Ask the agents. Ask Lee Daniels. I've got the call logs, she continued, holding up a folder that hadn't even been introduced into evidence. The defense immediately objected, but it was too late. The jury had heard it. A major Hollywood name. A man many believed was untouchable. Monique went further. I know who was at the parties. I know which NDAS were enforced. I've seen people sign them in front of me. I was told not to speak. And when I did, my work dried up. I was told, be grateful, you're lucky to be here. Then she said something that silenced even the prosecution. I have audio of a phone call. Tyler apologizing for everything. He admitted he was wrong, but he refused to go public. He said it would ruin everything. She stared straight ahead. "I'm done protecting men who never protected me." That single statement hit harder than any exhibit the courtroom had seen that week. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Diddy. It was about the entire infrastructure of power that allowed him to exist unchecked. Nique didn't just point a finger at Diddy, she pointed it at Hollywood itself. And for the first time in the trial, jurors were looking beyond the man sitting at the defense table. They were looking at everyone who helped him stay there.